First of all, great movie. I really, really love this film. I wanted to start by asking just about this archive of footage that you had, 22 years of footage from across your career. What was it like to revisit these images? Some of them must have been familiar, but I'm sure some of them must have seemed strange, almost alien to you from such a long history.
好，谢谢大家。这部影片就是最初是从2001年，也就是新世纪之初开始拍摄的。那一开始我觉得可能是拍2、3年，然后完成一个这个就是新世纪初这头几年一个我生活的社会环境、人这个一个浮世绘一样的这样的一个影片，来表达对当时中国社会的一个观察和其中的生活的人的一种观察。但是拍了很久之后，这个我一直没有一个心理的理由能让这个拍摄停下来，所以就断断续续一直拍，拍了很多年，也积累了很多素材。确实就像他说的一样，素材越来越多，但是我从来没有回头看过这些影像。那么20多年过去之后，因为到了2020年疫情爆发以后，大概过了半年，我感觉这个疫情好像一下过不去，那我需要继续我的电影工作，因为那时候旅行也不方便，也很不方便外出，那我就想起这些素材，我觉得从心理上，我觉得这部电影该结束了。
So thank you. And as I mentioned before, the film started in 2001. I started gallerying and depositing and archiving all the images that I just aimlessly trying to capture with the DV camera. And I thought that maybe this project will last about 2 to 3 years. And I want to have this impressionistic way of capturing image to depict the people, the environment, the spaces that move me and touch me, almost as if that I'm creating this ukiyo-e, the Japanese ucup painting, or this picture of the floating world, but in the Chinese context.
Thank you.
But after I started the process of this trying to depositing and archiving the images, I realized that I don't really have a reason to stop. And that's the reason why I started to continue this particular way of capturing images, depositing, archiving images, and for more than 20-something years. It is not until 2020 when the COVID hit, and 6 months into the pandemic, I realized that this is going to be with us for it's not going to go away anytime soon. So the fact that I couldn't travel, the fact that I couldn't venture out of my own apartment, suddenly realized that this might be a perfect time to, because I haven't seen the footage that I have captured within the past 20-something years, and that was the moment I realized that this will be a perfect time to revisit them.
重新看这些素材是一个很复杂的情感。我觉得一方面就是你从，比如说女演员赵涛，从她20多岁一直看到她40多岁，这个形象在这些素材里面，她逐渐的在变化，她在变老。然后你再看，就是一个很伤感的事情，时光的这种流逝。那另外一方面，你又看一个又陌生又熟悉的过去，就好像看到我自己的过去，虽然都是我经历过的，甚至这些也是我拍摄过的，但是很多我已经遗忘了。我已经忘了那时候我们穿的是什么衣服，那时候街道的声音是什么样子的，那时候我们的发型是什么样子的。所以看这些影像的时候，在这种熟悉跟陌生感交织里面，你会 就对我来说会是一个非常奇异的一个时光的旅程。
So when I revisit these, the footage that I captures in these more than 2 decades, I have mixed emotions and very complex reaction to what I saw, because the footage captured the aging process of Zhao Tao, my longtime actress, and I have seen her on screen when she was in her 20s and all the way to now she's in her 40s. So I really see the kind of passage of time and the change in terms of her appearance. And I also realized that there are a lot of things that when I look back on the footage I captures, a lot of them actually I forgot about what the clothing was like during the turn of the century, what the streets looked like, the hairstyle of the people at the time. So it's a very interesting feelings of at once feeling very familiar with the image that I have captured in the past, but also there's a strangeness to it just because I don't really recall or remember a lot of footage that I actually captured. So it's a very, very interesting, almost like a time travel when I look back on the footage I have captured.
但同时我也发现这个人物，就是巧巧这个人物，在这些素材中，随着时光的推移，你会发现他越来越强大，就是从一个不熟悉世事，沉浸在爱情里的一个女性，你会发现到了这个素材的中段，她开始面临她情感问题的时候，你看到了她有一个果断的决定能力，那这些呢，就又看到一个人物身上他所具有的这样一个能量。
And for the character Qiaoqiao, I also see how she grew throughout these years, more than 20 years, and you see her growing stronger and stronger, starting with this naivete type of young girl and going through the torment of this particular relationship and ended up being becoming this strong female character that has the courage to make a lot of decisions on her own, for her own, and that is the curve and the arc of the growth of this particular character also very impressed me a lot.
那另一个奇妙的感受就是说，看这些过往的拍摄的素材影像，总会让我联系到当下，联系到现在，也会让我去想象我们的未来。所以，就是当在这样的一个过程中发展出了当代的部分，就2023年的部分，就是疫情期间这个故事是在剪辑的过程中慢慢想象出来的。而当这些个想象的这个当代的部分成型的时候，我突然发现这个电影它并不是一个回头看的电影，这个电影它带给我一个非常迷人的一个电影时刻，就是它在讲我们一只脚还在过去，另一只脚已经迈向了未来，在这样的一个时刻，或许它是一个短暂的时刻，就是这部电影在讲述这个时刻。所以我觉得，对，它就是这样的一个感受。
So through this amazing time travel that I have with the old materials and footage I gathered in the past 20-something years, suddenly I realized that there's a sense of that this film should not be just about looking back. This also should be a film about very much about here and now and also the future. And that's the reason why I started to think about how am I going to incorporate the contemporary part of the stories shot in 2023 during COVID time. And not only have this particular component to depict the here and now, I also think that the imagination took me to a place to think about this is a very brief moment of a very crucial juncture for us as a humanity to straddle between two different eras. Almost as if that we are 1 foot in the past and 1 foot into the future. And that is very much how I envision how the story will be structured.
I wanted to pick up on that last thought because I think that you said something similar in your lecture yesterday. And it occurs to me, watching the film, that part of what you show us is what film can do to show us change across time that is so particular to that medium. I'm curious about your interest and curiosity in the future and what film says about the future. That's something that's come up in your recent work quite a bit, and I'm very curious about that.
但其实就是所谓未来，就是在风流一代里面，我就是未来已经打开了它的一个门。这个最早我们看到的可能就是这个机器人儿，就是这个人工智能。我记得这个影片我们最初在5月份在戛纳放映的时候，很多观众问我说最后一部分是不是一个科幻的电影？我说不是科幻，我们中国真的到处都是这种机器人儿，送菜的、送货的、送外卖的，办事大厅里面引导员都是机器人了。可以说我生活的社会在人工智能方面使用是最激进的。那我觉得对我来说就是，如果我们从这个影片的刚开始是。中国刚刚开始有了互联网，2001年我们看到年轻人在互联网里面上网，那么到影片结束的时候，那个门又打开了，要从互联网时代进入到智能时代，这种变化它一定会带给我们重塑我们的人际关系，重塑我们的情感关系，那就是那个。不管我们对未来是憧憬也好，还是有一种紧张也好，那个门它已经透出光来了，我们必须往那儿走。
I just think that the door of the future already has opened for us. If you think about what's going on right now in China, the incorporation of robots and then artificial intelligence is very much omnipresence and what's going on right now here and now in China. When I showed this film in May at the Cannes Film Festival, some of the viewers asked me whether or not the last part of the film is more or less a sci-fi film. And for me, it's just that I need to let them know that this is what's going on right now in China. You see these robots, they will serve food in restaurants, and then they will deliver your food, and you will see them in offices to guide you to your desk or the place that you want to go. So I do think that this is very much part of the daily lives that Chinese people right now in China are experiencing. So I think that in the beginning of the film, starting in 2001, you see this beginning of the internet era. You see people going into internet cafe, and then fast forward to 2023, you suddenly see the existence of the artificial intelligence technology. And I really think that this is a juncture that we have moved, and the door has opened for us to move from the internet era to the artificial intelligence era. And I can't help but wonder, what would it do to how we relate to each other as human beings, how we love as a result of this new technology called artificial intelligence?
I want to ask you about music. Music is essential to much of your work, but I think it especially stands out to me here because I think what we lack in dialogue as we move through, we have provided for us, I think, musically in many ways and in text messages. But could you talk to us about your relationship to music, which is not merely ornamental, it's very emotional, I think.
我的好几部电影里面，不是好几部，我所有电影里面，这音乐都比较多，特别是流行音乐。但是在风流一代里面，我觉得跟以往不同，因为以往的使用的流行音乐，有的是严格按照那个它是时代的一个标志，比如说站台里面的音乐。不同的年代，因为站台有10年的时间跨度，80年代，每一年都有1、2首歌是一种时代的标志，它聚集了我们对于那个时代的回忆，那它是非常准确的出现在那个叙事的时间点上，那么到风流一代不一样，是因为这些音乐它完全是主观的。有的是最近几年才出现的歌，但是它可能会出现在2001年，那个就是我觉得它整个这次音乐的使用，这种主观化的使用跟整个剪辑的一个新的方法是统一的。
So many of my films, in fact, all my films, music plays a very important role, and especially pop music. But I do think that the use of music, especially pop music, is very different in this particular film called By the Tides. If you look at how I use music in the film, my second feature film, Platform, I really use that as a way to capture the essence and also quintessential quality of that particular era. In fact, any viewers will be transported back to that particular place and time because of these songs or these music will suddenly become a trigger for them to somehow transport it to, as I mentioned before, that particular specific time and specific space. But for this particular film, the music is used in a very subjective way. In fact, I will use music that is the current pop music, but use it in the 2001 context, which means that it almost like anachronistic, right? Anachronistic, that somehow it doesn't really historical true in terms of that's the music fitting the right time and age, unlike Platform. But at the same time, I do think that this time, the way of using music subjectively is very fitting to the way also I edit this film.
对，因为我面对这么长的时间跟拍摄的如此丰富的素材的时候，我觉得我不应该用一个仅仅是一个线性的一个故事来结构这个电影。而就好像，对不起，就好像我们认识这个，就是我们生活过的这个时代一样，其实它的声音，那些不相关的记忆的片段，它们构成了我们记忆的一个模样，而这里面似乎并没有那么多直接的因果的关联性，但是就好像量子纠缠一样，在这些不相干的这个不同的故事记录生活片段里面，它们有一种隐秘的关联，就好像我们抬头仰望星空，每一颗星星都是孤立的。但是它放在整个一个星图里面，他们共同绘制了一个完整的星图。那我想用这样的一个方法来剪辑，那相应的来说，就是它会让影像跟声音的处理更加的自由，也包括在这个过程中，我发现视听的它的传递的情感的能力更强，所以我将语言降低。就是女主角从头到尾也没有说话， 因为我觉得我们跟随着他，用我们的感官，我们听不同年代的声音，看那些影像，我们看他的表情，看他的形体的变化，看他眼睛里的目光，可能我们接收到的是更加丰富的一个情感信息和时代信息。
Since I have such a long span of footage that I have captured throughout the past 20-something years, I do think that it will be difficult for me to use a very conventional linear way of creating a structure, trying to tease out that kind of narrative art. So instead of going by the conventional causal connection to trying to structure a story, I thought about this idea of quantum physics. How can I actually connect things the connections are subtle and hidden, and seemingly unrelated things, actually there's some connection among them. For example, if you think about, if you look up to the stars and gazing on the stars, and you were suddenly seeing each individual stars without realizing that maybe there's a hidden and subtle connections of all the stars that are suddenly mutually influencing. That's at the end you see this complete star chart or star chart or star map being mapped out. And that is the sort of epiphany for me to start to realize that I can use music the same way to, as I mentioned before, I can use it anachronistically, so that will give me freedom to really think about the subtle and hidden connections that I can somehow embed it into the films, that focus on more about teasing the emotions out of the characters rather than trying to rely on dialogues, rely on words to really spell out the story and the narrative line for you. So without those words, without those dialogues, suddenly you are forced to pay more attention to the location sounds, to the ambient sounds, you're forced to pay more attention to the facial expressions, to sudden emotional reaction from the eyes and sudden changes of the environment, of the context. And that was the intention for me to somehow structure my film and edit my film that way.
所以就这些歌曲的选择，它就是一种完全是一种质感性的，它没有为什么，而是当进入到这个叙事或者进入到这个场景的时候，我觉得应该用这首歌。
So for the choice of songs, it's very much of the emotional, sentimental reaction to the narrative or the space or the characters that I think that this is the time for this particular song to be played.
但是影片最后一首歌是用了崔健的《继续》这首歌。
And the last song for the film is a song by the name of Go On by the singer Cui Jian.
因为我喜欢他的那一句歌词，仅仅是站立在出生的土地。
And the reason for it is the last title card. You see the lyrics of this particular song, and I'm just standing on the land that I.
仅仅是站立在出生的土地。
I'm only standing here on the earth that I was born in.
对，因为我觉得这里面的人物，他们20多年被不同的时代潮流所裹挟，但我感动我的是，大多数人在这样一个潮流里，努力保持着自己的姿态，不被摔倒，
So one thing I admire about those characters, especially the one that I capture in this film, is that even though for the 20-something years that they have experienced ups and downs and been clashed by the tides and waves again and again and again, but some of them, they still maintain their true self and want to be themselves and then persist and then be resilient and still find courage to move on, to go on.
努力站立着，就是努力保持着我们的尊严。
The more you try to stand up when you encounter so much of the adversaries and a lot of just like the clashes of tides. I think this is how you can maintain your human dignity, and that's the only way you can do it.
我很高兴这部电影能跟我同时代的其他艺术家做这样的互动，包括这里面也有一组照片的作品，就是绿皮火车的一组照片的作品，是这个摘用了摄影家钱海峰先生的这个一组照片作品，我们做了这个静态照片的蒙太奇，把它组合到这个影片里面。
So I, along with other artists, shown or been included in this particular films, that we see ourselves as one of those trying to still standing firm and still maintain our dignity, and to still go on, including the musicians, Chui Jian, as I mentioned before, also the photographer. That part of the image, the still shots for the trains, I actually included that as part of the montage for this film as well.
I wanted to open up to the audience for a couple of questions. We have a mic coming around to you. Yes, red jacket. Hold on, there's a microphone right there.
Qiaoqiao导，我是台北人我是杨德昌的干儿子。那我每一部电影我都基本上都在想办法在台北金马影展去观赏。那我想问你一个问题一个部分就是说你在拍这部作品的时候，跟你之前拍在威尼斯电影节拿上金狮奖那部三峡好人有没有相关性？然后呢，第二件事情是我想问一下，因为我在理解长江三峡那个年代了我不知道性病有这么的猖狂。你拍到很多有关性病的东西，就是招牌什么叫小心这些东西那我最后一个问题，你刚刚有回答过说您的妻子赵涛基本上没有什么台词，那为何你会选择用一种非常内敛的方式，让观众看到你太太基本上就是不用台词，就是用内敛的表演去在电影中表演这样子？谢谢贾导。
谢谢你。
So the question was that I'm from Taipei, and I'm actually surrogate son of Edward Yang. And the question is, the film that you won the Golden Lion in Venice, called Still Life, what's the connection between that particular film and this film called By the Tide? And I also, just as a comment, that I don't know why that there are so many signs to indicating that people needed help with STD somehow around the Three Gorges area. So you will see the posters in the back somehow indicating that. But that aside, is that the characters, which is wordless, dialogueless, or why is that you choose to let Zhao Tao to be so to create this particular character in such a reserved and restrained manner? Is there a special intention for this character to be wordless?
对，就是这部影片里面有一部分是三峡的，而这三峡部分的大部分的就是风流一带里面用的素材，都是在三峡好人拍摄之前，在三峡就是漫无目的拍摄的，包括有一些赵涛的部分。那这些影像，因为在同一时期就是拍完这些影像，我开始拍纪录片《东》，开始拍《三峡好人》，他们是同一时期在三峡的奉节跟巫山两个县进行了这个长达半年的拍摄，所以积累了很多的素材。所以从视觉上和人物上，我们能看到它跟《三峡好人》有一些相似。 但是另外一方面呢，就是说这个影片实际上在我在剪辑的时候，我觉得对于我来说，不仅是这些没有公布过的这些积累的这些素材，我觉得所有我拍过的电影都可以重新去审视它，都可以使用其中的素材。我大概有5个镜头是在我的电影中曾经出现过的，比如说巧巧跟兵哥这个在公共汽车上推攘，比如说巧巧从教堂出来，他遇到了一个移民的场景，他在江边走，那个镜头在《江湖儿女》里用过，大概有5个这样的镜头，我觉得对我来说，他们都是过去这23年的岁月里面我看到的，我听到的，所以我没有局限于仅仅用那些没有公开过的电影，所以我选择了5个已经公开过的镜头出现在这个电影里。
So for me, the connection that you saw, the similarity you saw, is because the fact that the sequence for the Three Gorges actually was shot right before I make the feature film, and also at the time I was working on a documentary by the name of Datong as well. So it was shot aimlessly before those 2 films be made. So that's the reason why you see the similarity and connections, and they look familiar because of the fact that we were there for 6 months to capture all these different images, including the location of Wushan and also Fengjie. And the reason why I want to revisit these elements of the footage that I have captured in the past, it's not only to think about what kind of footage I can include in this particular film that has never been shown or used in other films. In fact, that you have seen 5 different sequences in this particular film that have appeared in my other films. For example, the sequence of Qiaoqiao in the bus being pushing back to her seats again and again and again. That is the exact sequence that I already use in the film Unknown Pleasures. And there's also the scenes that you see the Qiaoqiao walk after the church and then go to the river dock and then seeing all these migrant workers coming in. That is the exact scenes that I have used in the film Ashes Pure as White. So what I'm trying to do there is that, yes, there are parts of the films that is I never used and never been seen, and I edit them into the film. But there are 5 particular sequences that I still think that I have every reason to put them into this particular new film as well, for the fact that this is also part of also part of my memory. It's also part of the film memories, and there's no reason for me to treat them any different from all the footage that I have captured in my past 20-something years.
对，那之所以就是其实我在这个拍摄的过程中，就是过去的部分，赵涛他是讲话的，也拍了很多对白，但是我在剪片的时候，我剪到就是看到一组我们在三峡拍的素材是，当时我们在一艘船上，那个船里面就是在它的底舱。靠近那个发动机的底舱在卖盒饭，然后很多人在那儿买，然后我觉得这个场景非常吸引我，然后我就想拍一个拍一个赵涛去买盒饭的一个镜头，那当时因为他的靠近机舱那个噪音非常大，这个录音师就跟我讲，他说录不到对白，那可能需要后补。然后这时候赵涛在旁边，他说买一个盒饭为什么非要说话呢？我不说话也可以买啊。然后我说那好啊，那你就去买。然后他就指指点点，就用一个默片的方法，他是用一个沉默的方法在买盒饭，但对我来说就好像看到了默片。所以我在剪辑的时候剪到就是看到这个镜头的时候，我突然发现。如果让人物不说话的话，我们可能获得的会更多， 因为那个感官它就会调度的，我们 focus 在影像，在他细腻的表情，然后在他的形体很微妙的变化，以及在那些环境音，上面，就是我觉得它会让这个电影变得敏感跟丰富。那就开始把前面剪的那些说话的全剪掉，对，最后就那个，就剪的只剩下了他唱歌，因为他中间他的这个去三峡之前唱了一首歌，之所以用这首歌，一方面是情绪上的需要，再一方面我担心人家以为他真是个哑巴。他是会唱歌的，就他唯一开口就是在唱歌他其实开了2次口，我先说第1次开口，sorry。
So when I first edited the film, actually the sequences I put together for a long period of time has the Qiaoqiao character speaking. Actually, she had dialogues and she do have interaction with other actors. It is not until I added to the point of the scenes in the boat in the boiler room, that's where they serve lunch. And then I asked Zhao Tao to purchase a lunchbox as a character. And then because of the fact that the engine's so loud, the sound recorder told me that I can't get anything. This is something that we have to somehow find a different way to do it. And then Zhao Tao just looked at me and said that, why do I need to say anything? I can actually get a lunchbox without saying anything. And then I say, okay, try it. So she actually did it. She just acted out the whole scene without saying a word. And for her, it's just a way to say that I can do this as well. But for me, as a director, I actually saw something that is very, just like a silent films and being played out right in front of me. So that really dawned on me that actually less is more. If I somehow made this particular character's dialogue wordless or dialogue-less, then I will force the audience to pay more attention again to the facial expressions, to the ambient sounds, the location sounds, pay more attention to the body language. So that is the reason why I went back to edit out all the scenes with her speaking. In fact, the only thing left for her to demonstrate that, and because I'm afraid that the audience might think that she's mute, that she can't even speak, but I want to make sure that she chose to not speak, but she can, because in the scenes that right before she went to the Three Gorges, she was singing. So you know that this is a device not only to tease out the emotion, and that is the right way to use song for her to sing it, to express that. Not only that, also to prove to the audience that being silent is a decision. It's not because of the fact that she wasn't able to, biologically speaking.
那他在电影的最后，他跑步的时候喊了一声，那个是计划外的。当时我的剧本就是他在跑步，然后在雪中跑步就结束了。但是我们拍了第1条，摄影机配合不是很好。然后再拍第2条的时候，重新拍的时候，他跑着，赵涛突然喊了一声，然后突然喊了一声，然后拍完之后，他对不起导演，我刚才不由自主喊了一声，我说那就再拍1条吧。然后我们又拍了第3条，拍完之后，我突然意识到刚才他喊了一声非常好，我说好了，我们拍完了，可以了，我会用那个第2条，就是喊了一声的，对。那后来交流是他说他跑着突然想喊，对，我觉得，我有一个习惯，就是我经常我的电影的结尾真的是最后拍，可能是就是因为那个部分是当代的部分是剪完之后写的剧本，前面是没有剧本的，就是疫情期间的都是有剧本的，他连贯的知道了这个人物过往，然后。在演最后一场戏的时候，也就是在演结尾的时候，他不由自主地喊了一声，我觉得，对，我觉得应该用这1条。
So the second instance that you realize that she can actually speak or have vocal ability to make noise, is when at the end of the film that she was jogging and suddenly yell out or have this scream and shout at the end. So I think that it's something that completely planned because I actually have script for the contemporary part of the film. The first two parts, in terms of the footage that I use and edit them together, I didn't have I don't have a script for that, but definitely for the contemporary part that I do. And we were shooting this the last day of the productions, and then I asked her to do this for the first take, and she did it. And there's some camera movements that just, didn't quite work, so it's no good. So I asked her to do a second take. So during the second take, she started jogging, and she can't help but just let out that particular shout and scream. And then she actually apologized for the fact that, I should not have done that. And then we say, okay, let's do a third take. And then we finish the third take, and I suddenly realized that actually the second take is the one that I should use because it really conveyed her emotions at the time, and she actually couldn't help but making that particular utterance of whatever emotions that she carried with her. So that's what we end up with for this film.
We are out of time, but want to thank all of you and thank you for bringing us this wonderful film.
Thank you.
Thank you.
好，谢谢大家。Thank you.
Thank you.